Hola a todos, buenas tardes. El día de hoy les vengo a compartir una pequeña lección acerca de Hernán Cortés y la conquista española sobre el Imperio Azteca. Entonces vamos a empezar. En 1521 Hernán Cortés llega a Yucatán con 11 barcos y más de 450 soldados, tomando la localidad de Tabasco. Con ayuda del ejército tlaxcalteca, Cortés logra hacerse con la ciudad de Tenochtitlán, la capital del Imperio Azteca. Por lo tanto, tomando Moctezuma como rehén y bautizando el territorio mexicano como la Nueva España. Any questions? Okay, what you guys just experienced is just a glimpse of my first 6 months at Met, when I first arrived January 2024. So this is not a typical story of immigration. I want you guys to know that this is a story of endurance and determination. So, yeah, this is a story of how I went from not understanding a word of the language to standing in front of you presenting 3 months away from going to UC Riverside. So, let me tell you a little bit about my life in Mexico. So, my life was very stereotypical. If you were to guess that we watch Shrek very often and eat beans and tacos all the time, you'll be right. So, yeah, since I was born till I was 14, I lived with my parents in Mexico, obviously. And guess what? I had no hopes or expectations on what I wanted to do with my life or what I wanted to do, or who I wanted to be, sorry. So, yeah, most of you probably only know a little bit about the Mexico educational system. So let me tell you my experience. Oh my god. Okay, so this is my middle school.
Okay.
The first thing I remember when I arrived to the Met was that I got a computer. In Mexico, everything, and I mean everything, was done on paper. There was no smartboards or any technology available. So, not only that, the school was worn out. You can see graffiti everywhere. This is a picture from, well, this picture is 15 years old. So there's still fence. While I was there was no fence. Okay, so anyone, regardless of a middle schooler, if it was a middle schooler or a high school student, could go in. So, the teachers were also awful. The 9th grade teacher thought it was a good idea to be teaching multiplication tables to 9th grade students. And if you were a girl, a friend with the teacher, you would most likely pass. So, lastly, the teachers were not supporting me in trying to figure out who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. So, one day, my parents picked me up early from school. I remember they had told me, say goodbye to all your friends, you might not see them in a while. I knew this was coming. It wasn't something new. So, I remember my mom telling me to learn English because it was something I was going to need eventually. And I didn't listen to her. I thought my Duolingo English was going to cover. Surprised it didn't. So, yeah, I stayed, after that, I stayed for about a year in my aunt's house in Mexico. So my parents were working in the United States, saving up enough money so we could all move together. So, they had promised they would visit us occasionally. And one time they did, they told us to pack up our stuff since we were going with them for a week. I remember that week, we were crammed into a studio apartment, 4 people. It was terrible. The carpet was dusty and dirty. It started to make my mom and my sister sick. So, despite all this, I was happy. I was just glad to be back with my parents. So, at the end of the week, I remember my mom taking us to the public library, which I had never seen before in Mexico. There's no libraries or anything similar. So I remember that library, and most importantly, Northgate Market and Costco, which are still my best friends since I got into the US. So, after that week, we came back to our aunt's house in Mexico. We stayed there for another 3 months, and then we finally moved to the US. My parents had saved up enough money to rent to traders. One of them had electricity and water, one of them only water. So my parents decided to sacrifice their comfort and choose the one with water so they could give the other one to us. So after that, no, it's the other way. After that, my sister got accepted into middle school. So it was 3 months before I could get into a high school because I got denied many times because I didn't speak any English. So I felt left out, I felt I was falling behind, and thought most probably that I was disappointing my parents. So after about 5 rejections, I finally took the tour on math. Of course, it wasn't English, so I didn't understand a word from it, and I had to wait until we got home so my mom could tell me about it. So my first day at the Met was a typical day. Oh my god. My first day at the Met was a typical day. Okay? So it turned out that my Duolingo English had failed me. I felt left out listening to the teachers. And I thought the amount of help I was giving was a bother to my teachers and to my classmates. So the next day I was starting to career research and began thinking about my life after high school. So I was in Gateway for 4 weeks after that until I got my first internship. Ryan Bros. So after I got this internship, I decided I had to make a change. I had to make a change in order to survive high school, to survive my internship, and ultimately to have any chance of success here in the United States. So I made a change. And that is where, in my high school experience, I began to discover myself and my abilities. I rejected any aid in Spanish, books, conversations with Spanish speakers, and I didn't want any homework in Spanish. This change was not just at school, it was at my internship too. I started to take on the register where I knew I would be face to face with a customer and I had to speak English. So, the rest of my internship experiences were also stories of success. I had been offered a job in 4 out of 5 internships I had done. So, obviously, it wasn't a success right away. I definitely struggled, since English is not an easy language to learn. I remember sitting with Carson trying to read Born a Crime, my first book in English, and I always forgot what the apartheid was. I had to ask him every single day. So math was a struggle too. Since I had virtually no education in graphs or equations, I had no idea, but somehow my transcript had got me into IM3. So it saved me gave me 2 tests. One for IM2, which I failed, and one for IM1, I also failed. So, at the end of my sophomore year, my grades were good. I got mostly A's. Then I moved into my apocalyptic junior year. In junior year, I was officially thrown into IM3 in physics. Turns out now, math was hard to understand with my still limited English. I started struggling in physics. I had a C for most of the semester, which you see might not be bad, but I knew I was letting down my parents. So I was constantly trying to do my best and get A's because I wanted to make my parents' efforts worth it. So eventually I got an A in physics at the end of the semester, which I see as a great trophy. So senior year came, and I realized I had wasted a lot of time in junior year not thinking about college at all. Senior year was the first time I had considered college as an option. I remember going through the PAQs with Jill, but I never imagined actually going to a UC. They were way too expensive and way too far, so I figured I would just go to Mesa. My advisor asked me a few times where I was going to apply. I wasn't going to apply to any UC. I thought the application fee was too expensive, and near the due date, I realized I could apply for free. I thought it was worth a shot and see what would happen. In March, I received my responses. I was accepted into UC Berkeley. Looking back, I remember seeing myself as someone with no goals. I wanted to be a firefighter, a chef, a medic, or a doctor. And Ryan Brothers was where I realized what I wanted to do. I want to be my own boss and open my own business. My mentor was an inspiration. She can work only weekends and spend the weekdays with her kids while still running a successful business. I never imagined myself to be this successful. I didn't imagine myself learning English this quick or even moving to the US. I didn't imagine myself having a 3.6 GPA. I didn't imagine myself going to a UC, and I didn't imagine making such a huge change like this. I remember at my spring SLC that I was complaining to my advisor that I didn't want to go to UC Riverside because how far it was. I didn't know anyone, and I would be starting from scratch with them. So my advisor made me reflect and realize that this huge change, going to Riverside, I had already done. I moved, learned English, graduated high school, and earned a place at a UC. So I was capable of moving a couple hours away to start a new school. This time, on my first day, I will know what my teachers are saying.